Bill Beahan. He's going to be speaking to us about immigration. Bill Beahan became involved in conservatism in the early 1970s when his future father-in-law started giving him copies of Human Events, the book Human Events. Bill worked on the 1976 and 1980 Reagan campaigns and had the privilege to meet President Reagan several times. Since Bill has always loved to read, he has become very well informed on issues. Bill has been heavily involved in church activities, the Republican Alliance, the pro-life movement, and the John Birch Society. Welcome, Mr. Beahan.
Immigration. It's a hot topic these days, but I want to back up a little. There's a whole thing about an American that flew into Paris, and he's waiting in line, and he's waiting in line for the customs, and the guy says, "Where's your passport?" He starts searching for it, and the French official gets impatient. He says, "You need a passport to come in here." And the guy finally finds it, and he says, "Shouldn't you know you have it ready?" He says, "Well, last time I came to France, I didn't need a passport." He said, "Really? You always need a passport to come to France from America." He said, "No, when I landed at Omaha Beach, I didn't have a passport, and there were no Frenchmen there either." But immigration is a big subject, and it's a touchy subject. I'll start by saying I've been to Mexico City on business, and I have seen the conditions that some of these people live in. I remember buying a shirt from a lady in a bazaar, and I spent $4.50 for it. And somebody later told me I probably could have got it for $2. And yet when I got home, my wife told me that it was probably 12 hours of work to make that hand-embroidered blouse. And so I see I understand completely why these folks would want to come here. That's not the issue. The issue is the way they come here. One problem we see today is we used to be a melting pot. My grandfather came from Ireland. He became an American. And my father, his son, just grew up as being an American. But there are a lot of ghettos, immigration ghettos, in LA, Miami. I've seen it in New Jersey, I've seen it in New York City, where you go into this area, and if you don't speak their language, there's nobody to help you. And that's a problem, because if we can't absorb these people and make them Americans, there's an Indian friend of mine that I worked with. He came over here with his wife, and they had 2 children here, and they became American citizens. They did it the right way. On the other hand, and I'm going to move into legal immigration, the problem is H-1B visas. Did you know that these companies go to India, they recruit these computer people, they bring them in, and they pay them about $20,000 to $30,000 less than they pay an American? Now, under the law, they're supposed to advertise. But they put an ad somewhere in some obscure journal and say they've done their advertising. And when they get there, they say, well, we couldn't find an American, so here we go. You take a case what I knew of, 4 of these young fellows from India. They came over, they'd just gotten out of college, they got an apartment with 2 bedrooms, 2 single beds in each bedroom, working for about $40K, which was about $20,000 less than the going rate for a programmer. They stayed 5 years, and each one of them went home with about $100,000. Now, in one way, I admire these guys. They scrimped, they saved their money. For 5 years, they didn't live as well as most they could have. And they went back, and they were on the golden road. They could buy a nice house, they could flash their money, buy a nice car. but it's not fair to American citizens. Outsourcing and offshoring. You've probably heard these terms. Outsourcing is when the job is taken to somebody in India who does the programming. When I left Toys R Us, my job was replaced by 2 Indians who were doing the job for a total of about half of what I was making. And then there's offshoring. What they do there is, it's not like its name sounds, it's where they bring these people in and they house them in dormitories, just like the 4 that I told you about, that I knew of. And they don't make as much as everybody else, but they're happy because they're so much better off than where they were. And it's costing Americans their job. At Disney, their IT people went through a state when they started doing this, they had to train their replacements. They were called into a meeting and told that we're bringing these people in, they're going to take over your positions. It's going to be a 6-month period. If you train them, they'll get a bonus. If you don't stay and train them, you won't get anything. It's just not fair to these people. But the biggest issue is illegal immigration. And there are several things that this costs. This costs every one of you money out of your pocket. The expense of kids in public school, the expense of in-state tuition. Some of these northern states are giving in-state tuition to illegal aliens. New Jersey, just last year, spent $38 million. I just got this out of northjersey.com yesterday. And there's other expenses. Dealing with all these people, the cost of the Border Patrol, everything like that. And it's a personal thing too. Jobs are lost. My grandson, who's now 22, went looking for a job when he was in high school. And he went from fast food place to fast food place. And a lot of them, the first question asked was, can you speak Spanish? And the people that were a lot of these places were illegal. But like I said, I don't blame these people themselves. I blame the system. It's not set up to be America for Americans. And Americans, of course, are everybody. The melting pot. I just did 23andMe. I have relatives from France, England, Ireland, and Switzerland. So my ancestors came over, but there's a lot of jobs that are lost right away. When you get 1 million people coming in illegally a year, and 1 million people coming in legally, and then another 500,000 that overstay their visas, after a while, you lose your ability to absorb these people. And it's like a lifeboat. You get a lifeboat that's got a capacity of 25. You get 25 people in it. You find somebody swimming along. You bring them in. After a while, though, the boat starts getting real low in the water. And then you got to start making some decisions. It gets tough. The other effect is that wages are depressed. Because Americans, these starting programmers in northern New Jersey were working for $40,000, $45,000 a year. Whereas kids out of college, American kids out of college were getting 55, 60 maybe. And so they said, why should I pay you 55 or 60 when I get this other guy for 40? So it depresses wages. It's got a domino effect. And then, I want to give you some facts. When 6,000 illegal aliens landed in Tijuana in November, in one of the first major caravans to hit the border, Fox News reported Mexican officials found that more than a third 2,266. Officials confirmed multiple cases of tuberculosis, 4 cases of AIDS, and chickenpox. They also carried skin infections, likely due to lice, and Chagas disease. Lice is the vector for typhus, but is relatively rare. Well, we've got reports now in LA that they've got typhus. It's very scary. So disease is a big problem. The next problem is crime. 80 to 90% of these people are good, hardworking people. I've met some, I've worked with some in various places, and they're decent people. But like any society, there's a criminal element. There was a case in Charlotte recently. There was a man that was being abusive to his girlfriend, and the cops were called. He was taken in, but he was only held for about a month. And then the ICE found out about it and knew it was illegal, and they sent a detainer. Well, the Mecklenburg County Sheriff is one of these people, he's a Democrat, he's a liberal, and he decided that he wasn't going to honor that detainer. So what happened? Instead of honoring the detainer, he let the guy loose again, and 4 days later he beat his girlfriend up again, this time putting her in the hospital. And then he got picked up again, but it didn't do her any good. But the big thing, the big problem, another big problem, California used to be a Republican state. California used to be a reliably Republican state. When I worked on the Reagan campaigns in 76 and 80, both times in the primary, Reagan took California, and in 1980 in the general, he took California. Now, Republicans don't even campaign there because they know they don't have a chance. Why? A lot of it's due to voter fraud. They found multiple cases of voter fraud in this country. And you know how easy it is? In New Jersey, where I lived for 15 years, you move in, you get a phone book, you tear the voter form out of the phone book, you send it in, you sign it, send it in, you go to vote, they send a thing that tells you where to vote, you go vote, and what do? They don't ask for ID. So I moved up there from Georgia, I said, "You want to see my ID?" And he said, "No, just sign here." Now I signed there and the signatures had to match, but that's it. If I had a friend in another town, what we could have done was each registered at the other's location. And as long as you're in a different county, and it would have been no problem. So we both could have voted in my county, and then we could have gone over and voted in his county. And so instead of the 2 votes we're legally entitled to, it would have been easy to produce 4. And with 3 of us, we could have produced 6. If we knew somebody in the 3rd county, we could have produced 9. You see how it works. No voter ID in some of these states. That's why we have to keep our electoral college, because the electoral college confines these issues to one state. And let me finish up with bringing this home to Georgia. Under Nathan Deal, decision was made to give some of these dreamers driver's license. And what do you do in Georgia when you get a driver's license? Well, I know what happened to me when I moved down here in 2007 in New Jersey. They asked me if I wanted to register to vote, and I said, sure. It'll save me a trip to the voter office. So I got registered and got my information in the mail, told me where to vote, everything. But these illegals have driver's licenses. What's to prevent them from going down and signing up? Now, one of our better state senators, Josh McCoon, tried to put a bill through that would stop this and prevent it from happening. He was stopped by GOP leaders in the Capitol. Then he weakened the bill to put in some of the things they wanted. And The bill passed the GOP state Senate by a 2/3 majority, but expired when it was denied any hearing in the GOP House, run by the Chamber of Commerce-friendly Republican Speaker, David Ralston. That's another problem that I'm not gonna go into, but that is a problem. In Georgia, as Republicans, I assume everybody here is Republican, you've got to decide, are you a grassroots Republican who wants conservatism to triumph? Or do you want to do what the Georgia Chamber of Commerce says? That's my question. And the Chamber of Commerce wants these people to come in because they want the cheap labor. They don't care about you. They don't care about me. They don't think long term. They think about the next quarter, the quarter after that, because the CEO is going to retire in a couple of years anyway. They want the cheap labor to make their profits look good. And that's just not right. So I've only touched the surface of everything here, but I've listed a lot of the issues. And I hope everybody can do a lot of thinking about this, and I'll finish with 3 words: build the wall. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Beahan. We appreciate that. Very informative. Are there any questions from the audience? Mr. Beahan, there has been some questions submitted via email or social media, and I'll just read you one of them. Do you think building a wall will really curb illegal immigration? Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Everybody can answer this.
I think it'll have an effect. One problem they have down in Arizona is that there's a national park that's fairly near the border that has signs on it that advises Americans not to go in it because it's too dangerous. Because the narco terrorists, the drug smugglers have taken it over. They use it as a way station. And a wall isn't going to get everybody, but it's going to channel a lot of 90% of it to the border crossings where they can be checked. You know, when I have people come over to my house, I want to know who they are. I want to know who's coming in. We need the same thing for our country, and a wall is one way to do it.
Thank you. Anybody else with comments?
You
Yes,
know,
sir. See, I can't see. Oh, yes, sir.
Go ahead up there. Go ahead.
okay, didn't mean to interrupt you, I do apologize for that, but I was just gonna say, you know, it's interesting that this person asked about the wall and would it be effective? And I can't help but think about when that CNN journalist, the White House correspondent, who had his credentials removed, when during that period his credentials to the White House were removed, he went down to the border in Texas and he did a piece about that. And the site that he specifically chose already had a section of the wall completed. And in that piece that he wrote that they were showing on CNN, he mentioned that there was no border traffic. So if the wall doesn't work, then why is there no border traffic in sections where the wall has already been completed?
Very good point. Yes, sir?
Yes, I'm Joe Inglis. One point is that there's some very powerful interests in this country and elsewhere that would like to see illegal immigrants come into this country and are fighting the efforts to stop them. These powerful interests are working towards integrating first the economy and then the actual nations of the United States and Canada and Mexico. You may hear in the news recently about the United States-Mexico-Canada Agreement, the USMCA, which is the current version of the North American Free Trade Agreement, NAFTA, called NAFTA. Well, if you go back a little bit in time, there was a counterpart that started out in Europe as the European Coal Commission, and today is the European Union. Originally, it was just a free trade agreement, but that evolved developed into a super government called the European Union, and today there are 27 nations within the European Union that have lost their ability to govern themselves. Today, we have Britain, United Kingdom, working very hard, many within that nation trying very hard to get out of the European Union. They've lost their sovereignty. They can't make decisions for their own country anymore. Well, these same powerful interests are working towards creating something similar to that here. They're working toward creating a North American Union, which is a combination of the United States, Mexico, and Canada. So and through that agreement, the USMCA is coming up before Congress very soon, and it's extraordinarily dangerous. But one of the reasons that one of the tools that they're using is to race the borders between the various countries, and they're using illegal immigration to do it. They're melting the populations of these three countries together and just erasing the border all together, so that there would be less opposition to merging these nations. So this is something we need to be aware of, and calling our congressmen, our senators to defeat this USMCA coming up.
Thank you, Mr. Inglis. Very, very interesting commentary. Thank you for that. Anybody else? And we can move on to our next speaker. Is anybody else? I'm
Yes,
sorry.
I would just like to add, I know I think about 10 years ago, south of San Diego, they built a wall for about, I'm not sure the exact length of it, but it was 40 to 50 miles. And that wall built during the Bush administration, it decreased illegal immigration by over 50%. So I think that saying the wall will not work is not valid, especially with the importation of drugs. It definitely inhibits drug trafficking.
Thank you, Mr. Webb.